August, September, October, you probably notice some strange things growing right in fields right along the highway. I don't know why I grow these things along the highway. It gets the neighbors talking anyway. So that's where I do all of my experiments, and that's also wherever if I have a drill that doesn't work or something that leaves a big old skip, it's always in the field right next to the highway. Anyway, I really didn't know how to go about these presentations, so I hope if you got any questions, I know I'll skip over something or leave something out. So if you got any questions as we go along or at the end, be sure and ask them, because that's probably going to be more valuable than what I'm going to talk about. Anyway, Dillon's a 12-inch rainfall area, so that's, I mean, we're really dry down there. So all this stuff that we're doing here is under irrigation. Where we're using cover crops, is like I said, we grow about 800 acres of alfalfa. We have a little over 1,000 head of cattle. We grow 400 acres or so of either malt barley or spring wheat. So where we're using cover crops is when we're rotating out of alfalfa. Some of that stuff we rotate out of alfalfa, we'll plant into wheat or malt barley. But probably a good chunk of it, because we have so many cattle and we need the forage, we'll plant a crop of peas and barley, and usually somewhere around the 1st of August or so, we'll cut the crop of that peas and barley. Well, we did that for a lot of years. Well, so you cut that crop off there somewhere around the 1st of August, and then you haven't got bare ground because it grows back a little bit. You get some volunteer grain and some volunteer peas and stuff growing, but you really don't get much out of it. So basically, you're wasting, 30 to 60 days of growing season where there's nothing really growing out there. So anyway, really the reason we're growing cover crops is to try and grow more forage for fall and winter. I mean, we feed an awful lot of hay, too much hay, and if anybody's got cattle and they're feeding hay, they know it's expensive, and the less hay you can feed, the better off you are. So we're trying to extend the grazing season by growing these cover crops. So anyway, then we decided, well, we should try and plant something after the peas and barley has been cut and put up as hay. So we started going in there with some cover crops and some turnips or some ryegrass or some things like that. And by the time we got it planted, it was probably at least the middle of August or so, and we'd get a little production out of it. I mean, it would get maybe 6 inches tall or so, but you really didn't get a lot of production out of it. At least we were pretty disappointed in it. I really didn't think it was worth the time and the cost of the seed and the time to go in there and drill it and stuff. So anyway, we kind of hit on the idea. I don't know whether I thought of it or somebody else told me that'd be a good idea or whatever, but we started planting this mixture of cover crops. And I think we passed out a deal that kind of shows the mix we're using. So we got the idea, well, we plant this cover crop mix at the same time we planted the peas and barley. So anyway, that's what we've been doing. We've been going in there. At first, we were just kind of putting it in the alfalfa seed box and growing at the same time, and then finally got the idea. Well, I was getting real tired of the peas and barley deal. It always came in a 50-pound bag, and I was getting tired of taking 50-pound bags and throwing in the drill and putting 2 bags of barley in a bag of peas and mixing it all up. So finally, I called up Circle S Seeds and said, how about you just mix all this stuff together in one big mix and put it in the bulk bag for me, and I can just dump it right in the drill, and we'll all be a lot happier. So anyway, that's what we've been doing. You can see the mix there that Circle S mix is mixed up for us. They just put that in the bulk bag for it, and I dump it in my seed tender, and then I just auger it out into the drill, and it's real simple and saves a lot of labor. If you happen to be looking at that sheet from Circle S, there's a couple different mixes on there, and the only reason those mixes are a little bit different is is to kind of work backwards through the deal and try and make a mix for Circle S seed that includes, they're all 50-pound bag lots, so the Circle S seed doesn't have to break a 50-pound bag and put 35 pounds of something in there and have 15 pounds left over or whatever. So that's why they just worked out a little bit different. So anyway, I've got some the pictures we took of what this looks like. And I'll just kind of go through them again. If you got some questions as we go along or get to the end, just holler at me. These are kind of random order, although this goes through 3 years. It's 13, 14, and 15. This is actually 13. This is a picture of a turnip. There, you can see the stubble in there. So we've already cut the peas and barley and put it up as hay. And once you cut in most cases, you won't hardly even see the turnips and the radishes and the ryegrass in there, in that mix. All you'll see is the hay barley. But once you cut it, they just take off, and it just explodes once you take the hay barley off. The cover crop will just take right off. That's a picture of radish. It's in that mix. So I'd say that's probably over a foot long, but they actually broke it off. That's about as they got tired of digging after they got that deep. So the taproot gets thinner and thinner, but they assured me that it probably went down another foot or two past what that shows there. Again, another radish. You can see that lots of volume there, forage volume. It is a lot of water, but it's a lot of volume too. This picture is probably, I'm guessing, because off to the on this side over here. This is actually corn. You can see the pivot track coming around. This is actually corn over here, and this is the cover crop. And I told you most of the time you can't see the turnips or the radishes in the peas and barley crop. But I don't know, for some reason this year everything was just right, I guess, because the turnips and the radishes are just about out competing the hay barley crop. I think that's the same picture, just a little bit later. One thing you might notice in here, there's a lot of weeds in here. But like I say, that's probably another 2 or 3 weeks after that. We probably cut it for hay, just so long as you get the hay cut before those weeds go to seed or anything. They make just as good a feed as the rest of it, especially if you're just feeding cows. If you're feeding dairy cows, it might be different, but for stock cows, they eat the weeds just as good as the rest of it.
Ed?
Yeah.
This year when you had a lot of your warmer seasons, your turnips and radishes take off early, did you have any problems harvesting the hay with so much green matter underneath?
No, the only problem we had cutting the hay is, let me go maybe another slide or two here. I think that's the same field. Well, here's maybe a picture. Like, see the turnip? I mean, it sticks up quite a bit. Depending on how much you want to look at it before you go in to cut the hay off, and kind of look and see how big your turnips and radishes are, because a lot of that, you can see a lot of that radish, probably over half of it is in the ground, the other half is above the ground. So you don't want to cut that turnip off, because you can cut the top off and it'll regrow. But if you cut it too low and you whack that top of that turnip off, it'll stop growing. So that's the only problem we had is we had to set our swather higher, so it was cutting like 2 or 3 inches off the ground instead of, anyway, I mean, we just set it so it was high enough so that wasn't clipping the top of the turnips off.
But it still dried down okay with,
Well, I don't know, the 3.5, 4 ton barley crop, we had a tough time getting it dry.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's kind of funny, I mean, we're feeding some of that stuff now, and to tell you the truth, it looks like crap. I mean, when we didn't get it dry enough when we put it up, I mean, it's kind of brown, and it's kind of looks kind of moldy, and it doesn't look like very good hay. I mean, it almost looks like straw that's sat there for a couple of years. It's kind of yucky looking, but if you go out and you feed a couple bales of that pea and barley hay, and you go feed some alfalfa, they'll go over there and eat the alfalfa for a minute, and then they'll turn around and they'll go over there and they'll end up eating the pea and barley hay before they'll eat the alfalfa. Yeah, go figure out.
Yeah.
And the pea and barley is where all the turnips and radishes are too.
Mm-hmm, yeah, it's
So
all
it's
planted.
all those tops that are in the hay too.
Yeah, and a couple of those pictures I showed were kind of unusual, because like I say, usually it doesn't, the turnips and radishes really don't often grow as much as the hay barley. Most times you really don't even see the turnips and radishes out there. All you see is the hay barley. I mean, the ryegrass and the rest of it's pretty little and you don't see it, but for some reason, things were just right that year or something, and it just took off and almost outcompeted the peas and barley. Just a couple pictures of the radishes and the turnips. Just a tremendous amount of volume up there, and I don't know, they talked about just didn't want to let them go seed, but I mean we just let them grow until the frost kills them, and they go to, I guess they're going to seed. They got a flower and stuff on them, but we've never had any trouble with them regrowing the next year or anything. That's this year, and you look at that and say, well, what? It's the same, exact same mix, kind of. The only thing we found out is, you can see in this picture, the ryegrass really took off, and the turnips and the radishes are down in there, but for some reason, the ryegrass just outcompeted everything else that year. And one thing we did find out is those other turnips were a variety they were called a purple top turnip, and for some reason, and I get Circle S said that the stuff they got said it was purple top turnips, but it turned out it was a different variety of turnip, and I don't think they're maybe not quite as aggressive a grower as the purple top turnips. But in any case, in this particular year, this year, the ryegrass just took off, and the rest of it.
so
Is that?
this is your second, this is after your first cutting, right?
Yep. This picture was probably taken in. Now you can see there's a lot of snow back there. That picture was probably taken in October.
Yep.
Yeah, so we'd already cut the peas and barley crop off it, and then once we took the peas and barley crop off it, the ryegrass just took off and kind of outcompeted everything else. And I don't know which I like better. In some ways, this ryegrass is better because it's a little, we haven't had any trouble grazing the turnips and the radishes, but it's pretty lush stuff, and they get pretty loose and stuff. We haven't had any trouble with them. But this is kind of nice too, because it's got a little more forage in there, a little more roughage. So I don't know what I'm going to ask them to put it in the mix next